Now, how's that as a way to start your day? Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome. Go right ahead.
Thank you so much. Well, my name is Lance Roger Axton. I am the co-founder of the Audio Comics Company, and as this nice gentleman and I were just talking about, a wonderful company out in Britain called Big Finish that does Doctor Who on CD. Audio Comics Company aims to be the United States' first ever audiobook company devoted entirely to doing adaptations of comic books, graphic novels, and occasional side diversions into the world of fantasy and horror stories on CD and on MP3 download. We are the first company to do this anywhere, and I also want to point out one important aspect about our company that's going to make us somewhat original in the very beginning, as was pointed out to me by a reviewer from Newsarama when I told him about our current slate of projects. He said, "I'm so happy. There's no mention of DC or Marvel anywhere in there. That's wonderful. You're doing independence." Yes, we want to focus almost exclusively in the first couple of years on independent, creator-owned books. And this one is our first title right here, which was just released on Halloween Day, Starstruck by Elaine Lee and Michael Kaluta! For those of you who don't know Starstruck has had a very long and very torturous history, as Elaine will attest to. It started off originally as a play off Broadway in 1980. And this particular play was written for one reason only, because as Elaine put it, I was so angry that I wasn't getting any good parts. I'm a short blonde woman. There was nothing for me. Yes, she is Southern. So what she did was she and her theater company, they came up with an idea after Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back to write a science fiction play, put it up on stage, but all of the kick-butt roles would go to women. So this is essentially, it is Star Wars, it is Star Trek, but with all of the main characters as women. Now, she's sitting in a restaurant somewhere in Greenwich Village with her sister Susan Norfleet, who's going to play the role of Drusilla the Muscle, and they've got a book on their table called The Studio. Now, for those of you who don't know this book, The Studio was a legendary book in 1979 which detailed 4 of the top fantasy writers working in their collected studio on the Upper West Side, and they were Michael William Kaluta, Jeffrey Jones, Bernie Wrightson, and Barry Windsor Smith. So, who happens to be getting a coffee but Michael William Kaluta, who goes over to the table and says, "You know, I'm in there." And as Elaine would later state, I thought he was trying to pick us up. But no, he wasn't. He was actually in there, and they got to talking, and as a result, Michael William Kaluta became the first comic book artist ever to design the stage setting and design the costumes for an off-Broadway show. The show ran for 4 weeks, ran again for 4 weeks, and then Heavy Metal picked it up and decided to start doing a series of Starstruck-related pieces. Now, this was later picked up by, I don't know how many people here remember, Epic. Anybody remember Epic at all? Epic was a creator-owned line of Marvel back in the 1980s. They did a miniseries, 6 issues. It went over everyone's head. No one could get it. It was too sophisticated for the 1980s. Of course, this was also the era of Flock of Seagulls, so that's not entirely unexpected. But then it went over to Dark Horse in 1990, where they tried to do something called the Expanded Universe. The problem was the book was all in black and white, and there was disagreements as to whether or not it should be in black and white or whether it should be in color. And once again, Starstruck went off into the ether until my company, I had picked up the play script years and years ago, 10 years ago, and I'd always wanted to do something with it. I just did not know what to do with it. And that's when I found out that Gene Colan, who is the artist behind Batman and Tomb of Dracula and so many other great books that you guys know, the legendary Gene Colan had suffered liver failure, and naturally he did not have health insurance. So I thought, what a great way to finally do something with Starstruck and help out Gene Colan at the same time. What happened was, we contacted Elaine Lee, and we had decided that, my business partner and I decided that this is going to be one of the first projects that we were going to do. Now, I should mention the name of my business partner. Some of you will be shocked when you hear the character he played. My business partner in this venture, his name is Bill Dufries. He lives in Portland, Maine. He is the voice of Bob the Builder. I am working with the voice of Bob the Builder, that's right. And he and I contacted Elaine Lee, and wouldn't you know it, the same week we contacted Elaine and Michael about doing Starstruck, that's when they told us that IDW was going to actually do the series, or that a comic book company was going to pick up the series. We didn't know it was IDW at the time, and we didn't want to ask, we didn't want to jinx it. But we knew that something was going on, so this was just serendipitous. We did Starstruck in Big Sur in August of last year, the same week that the comic book came out from IDW. These nice people who you see right over here, this is Amy Sue Lawless. Everybody say hi to Amy Sue.
Hi.
This is Jeffrey Much. And right over there, picking out graphic novels to purchase, that's David Manchel. David played the role of Khalif Bejar. Jeffrey was Rael Rex. And because of a screw-up in somebody's schedule, this lovely lady wound up playing both Verluna and her good twin sister, Galatia 9.
But
So,
did she get paid for both roles?
well, no, but you know what happened? She actually contacted a friend of hers who was a fight choreographer, and they worked out a fight scene with herself. It was the most hysterical thing we'd ever seen.
That happens at my house all the time.
It was wonderful. Elaine came out. We also had Ruth Henderson Locke and Karen Stillwell. This was a reunion of some of the original cast members from 1980 who lived in the area. And what I found out from Elaine was this was the first time anywhere that Starstruck had been performed in 25 years. So, the following year, we're all in Portland, Maine. WMPG FM has arranged for us to work in a giant studio. We have the voice of Eon Flux, Denise Poirier, who is on this. She's playing the role of Verluna. We have two of the top audiobook narrators on this thing. We have Tavia Gilbert, as well as Simon Vance, who is our narrator. And finally, because somebody else got sick the day of, Bill Dufresne wound up playing Dwanyan, who also plays Captain Chaos, who also is Grad the Illegible, who is also Zone the Warlord of Zencha, which I will be playing today along with the voice of Norm. Yes, I'm also the voice of Norm on this, and Norm is the ship's computer on the Siren 3, which is Verluna's ship, and he suffers from identity crisis, which means I got to play 20 different parts. Yes.
That was before breakfast.
Thank God, I say this right now, thank God for YouTube. Because that's all Bill and I were doing in his studio in the back. We're just watching YouTube and, okay, she wrote in James Mason. Oh God, we got to find James Mason. Okay, Kirk, that should not be too difficult. Bogey, we had, let's see, what else do we have in here? We put in Tony Soprano. We put in Tim Gunn from Project Runway. Yeah, it was pretty fun. So, what we're going to do is, this has just been released. Starstruck has just been released on CD. It's also available as an MP3 download through a variety of different places, but we've got copies available here today to sell, and as part of the sale, you get a free show out of it. So, I've reunited some of the original cast members, and we're going to do a couple scenes for you, plus you get to hear some of Starstruck, and I'm going to play something for you afterward, before we do a little Q&A session. I'm going to play something for you afterward that hasn't been heard since 1967. The Lost Doctor Strange radio show.
Ooh.
There was a Doctor Strange radio show on WBAI New York City in 1967. How do I know? One of my close friends was the producer. He has the only known masters, and he made a CD for me. I'm going to play some of it for you. I will say also this, when he played some of it at the National Audio Theater Festivals, which is where I first met him, people were coming up to him later and saying, "Charlie, you were so brave to play that." So, you know, it's a product of its time. But what you're about to hear, ladies and gentlemen, is Starstruck, and this is the very, very first scene of the play. It takes place aboard the Harpy, the freedom fighter under the UFFF, United Federation of Freedom Fighters. And it goes like this, and you're going to hear its numerous characters as well as the voice of the great Simon Vance. Here we go.
Captain's Log, Unit 80, 156 Anarch Era. Captain Galatia 9 of the freelance freedom fighter Harpy.
Myself and the crew of the Harpy have embarked on a mission having to do with the unexplained disappearance of Prime Minister Gloriana of Phoebus.